436 people, one single animal, and a massacre that lasted for years. This was not a legend. It was not a fabricated folktale. It was recorded in official documents. It truly happened, and that number still fills one of the darkest pages of history. But the real question is not, how many people did this tiger kill? The real question is, why? Life in the mountainous villages of Nepal was never easy. Waking up early in the morning, going to the fields, gathering firewood, walking down to fetch water. These were daily necessities. There was no alternative. If you didn't do them, you couldn't feed yourself. Your home would remain freezing cold in the late 1890s. Something began to change in these villages. At first, it started with just one person. He disappeared near the edge of the forest. Maybe he fell. Maybe it was an accident, they said. Accidents happened in the mountains of Nepal. People here were used to that. Then another person, then another, and one morning the villagers began to suspect something. This was not an accident. Something was taking people and making them vanish. That thing was a tiger, but not an ordinary tiger, because tigers normally avoid approaching humans. This is a well-known rule. The smell of humans disturbs them. The sound of humans drives them away. A tiger has no natural predator, yet it still prefers to stay away from people. It is an instinct shaped over millions of years. This tiger did not have that instinct. A tiger that attacked in broad daylight, that waited on village paths, women going to the fields, children returning from the forest, men walking alone. It did not matter to it. Sunlight, open areas, human voices. None of it stopped the tiger. The villagers were terrified and could not decide what to do. They chose to lock their doors. But as I said at the beginning, life here was not easy. If you locked yourself inside, you were exposed to cold, hunger, and many other hardships. People could not leave their homes, and those who could not go outside had to struggle with these conditions. A single animal had disrupted the order of an entire region. The Nepalese army decided to intervene. Soldiers came to the area. Their goal was to find and kill the tiger. But the mountains were vast. The forests were dark. And the tiger knew this land very well. Each time, it disappeared without a trace. Finally, what was expected happened. The tiger crossed the border. It moved from Nepal into India. It reached the Champawat region. And there, it continued the same habits. The region changed, but the brutality the tiger spread did not. Champawat was a relatively small region, located in northern India. At the foothills of the Himalayas, it consisted of quiet and isolated villages. The people there lived lives similar to those in the villages of Nepal, waking up early, going to the fields, finishing the day, returning home, and sleeping. Their lives followed similar routines. When the tiger arrived, it destroyed the balance there as well. But this time, there was one difference. People were more prepared. They knew what had happened in Nepal. They understood the level of danger this animal posed. Still, knowing was not enough. Because knowing does not save you. The deaths began here too. Every week, a few people from the village would vanish. Every month, a family would fall into fits of uncontrollable grief. Years passed. The number grew. 100, then 200, then 300. And in the region, this turned into a permanent feeling. Something that settled deep into the bones. Fear. But this was not simply fear of a tiger. It was something different. The fear of not being able to step outside. The fear of never returning home. The fear of sending your child out and waiting for the possibility that they might not come back. The fear of silence cutting through the air, of footsteps stopping, of darkness stretching longer than it should. People were exposed to this for years. I want to empathize, but I cannot. It is too horrifying. During this time, many hunters came to solve the problem. Some tracked the tiger. Others set traps. None of them succeeded. Each time, the tiger outmaneuvered them and disappeared from sight. It was as if it were an expert at erasing its own trail, as if it already knew what people were going to do. But every lived story must reach a breaking point somewhere, like every story does. Then someone came, someone different. His name was Jim Corbett. Corbett had spent even his childhood in these lands. He knew the forests very well. He knew the animals well too. But more importantly, he knew the villagers. He respected them. He carefully analyzed everything they told him. He valued the words of the village elders, investigated the directions described by children, and paid attention even to the smallest details shared by women. For Corbett, this was not just a hunt, it was a puzzle. And to solve any puzzle, you must first understand it. Before Corbett even began searching for the tiger, one question lingered in his mind. Why? He could not shake this question, because a tiger that hunted so many people for so long, so openly, had never been seen before in history. This was not normal, not even for tigers. So there had to be a problem somewhere. He investigated the tiger's past. He asked around, thought carefully, followed tracks, and eventually he came across a crucial piece of information: the tiger's mouth. Years earlier, a bullet fired from a firearm had most likely caused severe damage to the tiger's jaw. Its teeth were in terrible condition, and this damage had made it unable to hunt its natural prey, a zebra. It would resist, a deer. It would run fast, a buffalo. It would attack. All of them were strong, fast, high-level animals. For a wounded tiger, catching them had become almost impossible. But a human is slow. A human is weak. A human cannot escape. Maybe it was that simple. One bullet, one broken jaw, one desperation. And that desperation led to the deaths of 436 people. This thought takes you to a strange place, because this tiger was not a demon. It was not a monster. It was simply a wounded, desperate animal trying to survive. And humans were the easiest path. But does that mean it should not be stopped? Corbett understood the reality. Yes, there was an animal in front of him, but because of that animal, thousands of people could not leave their homes, could not enter their fields, could not send their children outside, and their suffering was real. We are talking about thousands of victims. Corbett continued forward. It was the year 1907, 4 days. Corbett tracked the tiger. He slept in the forest, waited in the cold, followed one track after another. He analyzed the information he gathered from the villagers in the deepest detail. He knew which paths the tiger used, what hours it moved, where it paused. And one day, they faced each other, one single shot. The tiger fell, after years of deaths, disappearances, locked doors, and frozen nights. Everything ended in a matter of seconds. Corbett examined the tiger's mouth. What he saw confirmed his suspicion. Some of the lower teeth were broken or severely damaged. This animal had been writhing in pain for years. and that pain had led it to humans. When the villagers heard the news, they poured into the streets. Some cried, some shouted, some simply sat down and did nothing for a long time, because the weight they had carried for years had suddenly vanished. And sometimes, when you carry something heavy for so long, you forget what to do when you finally set it down. Corbett later wrote about this event in his book Manitors of Kumion. He told not only the story of this tiger, but also other stories from the region. The book spread across the world. Corbett's name became a legend, but for Corbett, becoming a legend was not what mattered most. In the later years of his life, he completely gave up hunting. He began protecting animals. One of India's first national parks was named after him, Jim Corbett National Park, and it is still known by that name today. Perhaps that is the most interesting part. The man who killed the Champawat tiger spent the rest of his life protecting animals, because he had been forced to kill that tiger. But he had also understood why it had become what it was. An understanding changes a person. Change leads to growth. 436 people died. One tiger was killed. One man changed. And in the region, after many long years, people were finally able to wake up early and go to their fields again. They could leave their doors open. They could send their children outside. Sometimes, the greatest victory is something this simple, just being able to step outside.